Welcome to BI Digital's Threading the Needle. I'm Vance Leavy, your host today, and we're real happy today to have a special guest, former UGA golfer, PGA Tour, Brendon Todd, and then also on the Zoom is Becca Gemes, and she is works for us at Bulldawg Illustrated. She's kind of does everything for my wife Cherie and I, and backs us up. And Brendon, she also kind of helps you guys around the house the last couple of years, right?
That's right. She's our number one babysitter. So our kids love her, and we're happy to have her whenever she's available.
So obviously this is would have been Masters Week, but it's not. But either just the same, we got some good announcements yesterday. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But just a little bit about our show. It's called Threading the Needle.
Okay.
And us being football lovers, Bulldogs, to me, threading the needle is kind of what the Georgia football team has to do to get to the ultimate prize. But, in my opinion, it also translates very well into golf, shot making, and then, staying on tour. Why don't you talk about a little bit about what threading the needle kind of means to you in golf?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a pretty popular golf term. And like you said, it really does apply to shot making. Anytime you get in the trees or, you have a tight window, we call that threading the needle. You've got to hit a clutch shot that's very accurate. And if you miss your mark, it tends to have very negative consequences. So, threading the needle is sort of the essence of our sport. And, from a career standpoint, the tour is, a never-ending sort of season and season after season career where there's a very short off season. You're kind of always keeping your game sharp and ready to go and trying to play your best and stay in that top 125 so you can keep earning your card again, which, for me in my career has been a challenge at times. But, when I've done it well, I do it really well. So I'm back on the upswing and playing well, and I would say I've figured out how to thread the needle on tour and, keep my card year over year.
Yeah. So Brendon, we know that now you're number 4th, I believe, on the FedEx standings. So threading that needle over the years, how have you gotten from when you turned pro in 2007 to where you are today?
Well, it's just been dealing with the results as best I can and dealing with the ups and downs. And so, that's been one of the struggles for me, right, is, when my game started to go down, I've had a hard time sort of bringing it back on the upswing. And, so I think that for me, it's just been a sort of a journey of patience and perseverance and trying to figure out, who am I as a player? What are my strengths? What adjustments need to be made? Do I need to make many adjustments to play at the level I need to stay on tour? And, I think what I've found is that, my talent is good enough. And for me, really, it's just kind of about playing my game, doing what I do well, which is hitting it straight, having a good short game, staying sharp, and, threading the needle out there. And I think that, I feel really confident with where my game is right now. And, this long break we're having with the quarantine is probably actually an advantage to me because I've gone through so many stretches where I'm at home for long periods of time, not playing competitive golf. And so when we get back after it, I think I'll be very well equipped to have dealt with this long time off.
Brendon, being a career bogey golfer that I am, I've read about, the Bradley Hughes videos that kind of, as far as from what I read, they kind of got you back on track. What are the basic premises of those, I guess, the great ball strikers videos that could translate? Obviously, it translated to your game, but somebody like me who's, a weekend hacker.
Well, I think, the number one premise in his book is called the 430 swing path, which is basically just a clock visualization when the club's coming down. When the club gets on the downswing and it's at the 430 arm on the clock, if you were to look down from above, that is sort of an inside slot to hitting the back of the golf ball. And pretty much where every great player, no matter if they took the club back outside or inside, they all slot it to that position and then hit the back of the golf ball square, which creates very consistent results, right? So that's the number one premise. And then he basically has a drill series. It's 8 drills or so. You don't have to do them all. Each player kind of needs a different recipe of drills for their game. But the number one drill that helped me so much is hitting an impact bag from about this position down with each hand and then with both hands. And that it sort of retrained my release of how to get the golf club from the top of your swing back down to the ball squarely, so you can hit that flush shot that creates very narrow results. And as the show premise here, threads the needle very well. And so, I mean, that drill can't mess anybody up, really. I mean, it's just a fantastic ball striking drill. And then the other drills kind of work around that, whether it's your through swing that needs work or your backswing that needs work. He has drills for each area of the golf swing, and I've done a handful of them, and they really have been, I would say, the nuts and bolts of what's gotten my game back together.
Sweet. Well, you obviously are in a completely different place right now than you were a year ago. Considering open a franchise and even giving up golf completely. So it's neat to see that you didn't give up after a long run and that you're back in the game and even having this break to recharge too after being back on the tour these past few months after you qualified for Maui and everything, and being 4th in the rankings, which is just incredible. And now waiting for the Masters, even though we should be there now.
Yeah, what's it like, Brendon, that I guess you would be into your second practice round, and you would have had some practice rounds even before that. It's got to be a bit of a disappointment, but clearly with where we are in the world, good decisions all around.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I'm bummed not to be there. We're having just that perfect April weather where it's getting up to 80 degrees every day, blue skies, hasn't rained in a week now. And so I'm sure the golf course would have been in perfect shape and the fans would have been out there just, loving the tournament and the experience, which is what the Masters is all about. They really put on, one of the just most pristine, clean, enjoyable sporting events that there probably has ever been. And so, everybody who's been a part of a Masters tournament previously, I think, knows just how special it is and how much fun it is. And me as a player playing at one time, I was very excited to get back there and play again and compete for a win, right? I feel like my game's in a great spot. And so definitely disappointed not to be there this week. But, like you said, I think with COVID-19 being so widespread around the world and so many people suffering, they obviously made the right choice, because we can't get large groups of people together right now. We really can't even get handfuls of people together right now. So playing without fans wasn't a very good option either. And so, everybody around sports and around the world has made the right decision, I think, to postpone things. And, hopefully, we're able to just kind of weather the storm here and get through this and get to where coronavirus is much more controllable, and then maybe we can get back to resuming some of our normal business and daily lives that we're used to.
So now, what's it going to be like to have all those majors? From a fan's perspective, it's unbelievable. The PGA in August, followed by the U.S. Open in mid-September, the Ryder Cup, and then, for us Georgia fans, we get the Masters and host the Volunteers all in 1 week.
Yeah.
Hopefully all of it's going to happen, but how do you prepare for that? And then what is the PGA said about any of the other events, or is it just kind of wait and see?
Yeah, so I think the announcement on Monday was really exciting for everybody. Every golf fan, every sport fan who's sitting there saying, wow, look how all of a sudden we're, like you said, the PGA in August, then the FedEx Cup with the Tour Championship ending in Atlanta in September 7th around Labor Day, followed by, like you said, U.S. Open, Ryder Cup, Masters. So going to be such an exciting fall if we get there and resume play. How do I prepare? I think you just have to do a good job of, learning how to prepare for a tournament and then recover very fast, right? So maybe that means not playing a ton in between, or if we are forced to play a lot in between, like we will with the FedEx Cup, you just have to do a really good job with your time away from the golf course, getting your rest, making sure that every tournament round you're feeling as close to 100% as you can. And, so I think that'll be a challenge that we'll all face. But I think that the tour, with the new schedule where we do play the Players in March, Masters in April, then the PGA, U.S. Open, British Open, all in back-to-back months, I think everybody's already starting to get to a point where we are getting used to playing, one major a month for a 6-month stretch. And so I don't think the fall will be too much different. It's just kind of a delayed version of what we were supposed to be going through right now. So, I'm really excited about it. As far as other tournaments are concerned, the tour's trying to, find the right ones, fit the right ones into the schedule. I know that they've already discussed during where the U.S. Open was supposed to be, the British Open was supposed to be, they're going to try to plug in another PGA Tour event. Which one, I'm not sure yet. So, they're preparing all backup plans for resuming play, but we're just not there yet. We haven't really, I wouldn't say, gotten to the peak of this pandemic. And, I think everybody's doing their best to try to work through that.
Brendon, I heard in the podcast that I was talking about earlier with you, you talked about birdieing every hole, like going in with that mindset. Now, has your mindset changed at all over the last few years into where now that's what you're going into every tournament with?
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I've come out of my last slump. As I've gained confidence, it's probably the number one thing I've learned, that, the game that I've built now is good enough to go out there and shoot low scores on PGA Tour golf courses and contend for big tournaments. So, I think that's just been a result of, learning, what my game's capable of and what it takes to win tournaments. So that's my new mindset, go out there and birdie every hole, or at least give yourself a good chance to birdie every hole.
Brendon, what's it like for a tour family, and particularly one that has had to kind of ride some ups and downs like your family has done, and the importance of that unit staying strong, I'm sure, is the number one priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it takes a lot of flexibility, especially to be a PGA Tour wife who, whether you're playing well or playing poorly, the perspective of the player is always one that I could be doing better. So I think to be a very supportive PGA Tour wife, it takes a lot of patience and strength and discipline and, just that support, that love and support that, I'm so fortunate to have with Rachel, because, we've ridden some really tough stretches in golf. But fortunately, I seem to have always played well before the slump. So we were able to kind of ride out the storm with some of our savings. So we've been very fortunate from that standpoint, where we haven't had to get jobs. We've been able to have kids, live in nice homes, and, just kind of ride out the storm and then prepare for, the next upswing. But, even more to that point, even if you're playing well, let's say you keep your card 10 straight years, you're probably going to play an average of 26 to 30 events a year. So you never feel like you're home for very long. And so there's always this like pack, unpack, prepare, recover mentality. And so this is actually a really sort of awkward stretch for us, I would say, where, when I'm home right now, I'm not practicing or playing a lot, maybe once a week. And, we're home for the foreseeable future. We're, cooking 3 to 5 meals a day for our kids, grocery shopping. We can do some projects around the house. And, so it's just a really good time for bonding for us and kind of coming together as a family.
Becca, you have the inside track of what Brendon's like as around the house as a family man. What would have been kind of some of your most entertaining, or what you've gotten to know about him inside the home, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so I feel like that's one of my favorite things about the Todds, is what a great family they are. And especially, I started babysitting for them when Brendon was still trying to get back on the tour and earn his card back. And I was so impressed by how present he is with his family. I was babysitting next door one day, had 3 little kids with me, and we went over to Brendon's to play on the swing set. And Brendon quickly, I had a little like 9-month-old hanging with me and was holding him. And Brendon was like, "Oh, like I'll take the kid, like let me play with him." And or I'll swing with them, and you can do this and whatever. And I was just impressed that with all that Brendon had going on in his world in terms of his job. And I know that I'm one of 4 kids, so I know that it's a lot of pressure, providing for your family. And I was just so impressed. And that's been true the past 2 years. Like, Brendon is always super involved and on his A game. And his wife, Rachel, is second to none. Their kids are fun and loving, and they just adore their kids. Whenever Brendon got back from a really big tournament and had been on a long stretch being away from the house, and I asked his little boy Oliver, who's 5, I said, Oliver, like, who misses daddy most? And his little girl Scarlett, who's 3, looks up and goes, mommy. And I was like, oh, really? And Rachel, his wife, was like, no, we all miss dad the most. Like, we're ready for him to come home. And that just meant a lot. And I know, Brendon, what would you say is, like, what was your family's role during those years struggling? And of course you were on the tour without kids, and then all of a sudden you had 3 kids. So
I mean, there's a lot of love, obviously. I mean, there's nothing like a child's love, or, seeing your child come into the world. And those are, 3 of the most special moments of my life for sure. And then I think just distraction, right? One of the things about a golfer is you can always be thinking about your game, so whether you're sleeping, eating dinner, hanging with your kids, like, they force you to be present because they really do need your love and attention. So, they've just been a really healthy distraction for me, whether I've been playing good golf or bad golf. And I'm very thankful for that. And, we're very lucky to have each other and have such a solid family.
Brendon, Becca told me that you've kind of really taken on a role as some mentor to some players. Can you talk about that a little, as far as you being a mentor?
Well, I've gotten to spend a lot of time around the UGA golf team the last few years. And, with 10 or 12 guys on the team at any one time, there's always a handful of guys who are struggling. So, being able to practice them a lot the last couple of years as they were to watch my game kind of come out of the bottom and work my way up, I think they really started to respect my work ethic and my talent. And so I started to get a lot of good questions from them. So, last fall when I was setting the tournaments and they were starting their season, I know I was helping Will Chandler and Trent Phillips and Spencer and some of those guys just on, how to kind of get your game in peak form before tournaments, and then, maybe how to work on some of your practice habits while you're not playing tournaments to make sure you stay sharp. So, I've been fortunate to be around so many good players here at UGA, and, I really do love that time with them.
Well, since we're Bulldawg Illustrated, we have a quick question because we've got less than a minute left before our Zoom shuts off. What is your favorite thing about being a Georgia Bulldawg?
Oh man, it's got to be game day Saturdays. There's nothing better than that huge environment and Sanford Stadium rocking. So I hope we get to see that in the fall.
And, just to follow up on that, what's it like when you're at a game and people know you because they share the love of Georgia football, Georgia athletics, and golf? And, I know I've seen you at the SEC championship. It's just kind of neat as far as I'm concerned, whether you're hearing Go Dogs at a tournament. But
it's really special. I think we all have the Bulldog family love, and being at games is a blast. And, definitely on tour, there's a lot of Georgia support out there. We've got a great group of guys playing the PGA Tour, and everywhere we go, we seem to run into some Bulldog fans. So all I can say is go Dogs.
Man, we so appreciate it. You taking out the time to spend a little with us. Best to you and your family. I'm sure now that you have a concrete schedule, you'll begin to zero in on what it's like. And we wish you the best for a great fall. And let's just all hope there's a ton of golf and a ton of football. And again, we appreciate it.
Amen. I hear that. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Hey, don't forget to call your mom.